Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Office, a Korean mystery horror movie from 2015. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the more underappreciated Korean horror films of the last 10 or so years. A lot of people think this is just a mediocre or underwhelming movie, but I enjoy it more than most, so let's take a look. A man works as a section chief at a company. He's a family man, reliable at his job, but one day he murders his wife and kids and then disappears. A detective questions the man's co-workers, but suspects that they may be hiding something. He checks the security cameras and observes that the killer returned to work after the murders, like at nighttime, but there's no footage that shows him leaving the building complex. Now, Office is not to be confused with the Hong Kong film of the same name from the same year, which is totally different and not that great. This Korean film is a nicely executed, slow burn movie that feels a bit unusual due to its concept, and this has a very strong main theme: the relentless psychological pressures of competing in an office environment. And I think I have to repeat this to drive the point home. This whole film revolves around the relentless psychological pressures of competing in an office environment. And that's the basis for the whole story. Everything revolves around it. And the way the mystery is crafted, holds interest throughout, especially if you keep this theme in mind. Now, the female lead is played by Ko Ah-sung. She's an intern who is in line for hire at this big corporation, and their office is within this big building that the murderer may or may not be in. But certain events may block her eventual hiring. And this establishes a lot of stress for her. And it accentuates the situation because the boss and some employees are kind of jerks, kind of a cutthroat environment, and that creates an even more hectic working atmosphere. And it's also my interpretation that the concept of this murderer who may be inside the building is a representation of career stress. You know what I mean? So, like I said, everything's revolving around this concept. Now, there's two additional elements that I really enjoyed to this. Number one, the concept of a psycho killer who's hiding and living in an office building is pretty sweet. And number two, the fact that danger is enhanced by working late at night, And I've personally worked in some big office buildings, and there were times where I was the last person in an office at night. And a certain anxiety can manifest in those circumstances, and this movie taps into that anxiety because a killer could be lurking in the building somewhere and there's no one to help you, So it's a pretty cool element. There's a creepy vibe that's earned through very solid sound design. There are some intense moments to enjoy down the stretch, which I will not spoil. However, do not go into this expecting a violent, visceral, physically exhausting Korean thriller that, many fans associate with the industry. There's no graphic violence really on display here. Very little blood. Relies more on suspense, which definitely works for me. This is a nicely directed film. Hong Won-chan started his career as a writer on some big-time movies like The Chaser and The Yellow Sea. And he continues to write on some pretty impressive stuff like 12/12 The Day, which I reviewed not that long ago. So Office was his first shot as a lead director, and I think he's good. There's definitely a craftsmanship to this. And he would go on to direct Deliver Us from Evil, which was fun. So I do look forward to seeing what this guy does in the future. So again, if you've seen this guy's other stuff or the other films that he either wrote or directed, maybe check out this one. Sometimes it flies under the radar. You may enjoy it. Now, in terms of the cast, we've seen Ko Ah-sung in movies like The Host, Snowpiercer, etc. She's very good in this one, Office. She's kind of forced to change her temperament as the stressful office environment mounts and ramps up throughout the film, and I think she sells it. I'm also a fan of Bae Sung-woo, who always does a good job in supporting roles. He plays the apparent murderer. And the biggest criticism of this movie seems to be the ending, from what I've seen online. The ending is one of those things I liked most about it. The reason is that it's a little bit unconventional, and it still wraps up all the main concepts that the film has been exploring throughout the whole runtime. So some people disagree with me on this point, so keep that in mind while you watch it. But I very much enjoy this movie, and it's a movie that I come back to, once every few years. But as I always say, if I'm reviewing a movie that I enjoy more than most other people, go into it with modest expectations if you decide to watch it. It's currently available streaming on YouTube, Amazon, and Tubi. And as always, folks, we'll see you next time.